Thank you, everyone, for joining. We are going to be talking about the importance of trust and around your alumni and donor base, especially with the upcoming giving season that we are entering into right now. I first want to apologize. A lot of my slides are text heavy, but I wanted to pull in exact data and reports that we have found around giving behaviors this year, around trust, around data and privacy, and everything else. So in the next few slides, there's going to be a bunch of text, but it's with the intent of this being useful feedback as you consider what's your communication strategy going to look like? How are you trying to engage with your alumni and donor base? And are you going to need to pivot or adjust over the next month and a half as you're really trying to get more of those dollars in the door? This will be shared out. All of the links will be included around where we found these resources. But moving forward, our focus today is really on what are the metrics telling us? Why is trust so important for your alumni and donor base? And what can you be doing to really improve that outreach and that experience so you get more dollars in the door? Now, we know that some of this already might be too late for this season, and it's more of a long-term relationship building too, which is so important. But regardless, what we really wanted to show is that 67% of donors respond that it is highly important that to trust a charity in order to actually give to them. Now, some of these data metrics are for nonprofits at large. Some of these are going to be education focused. So we will be, again, every link, every data point will be linked to that research. But bottom line, trust is a number one giving priority, and people are going to really think through the organization before giving it. That's where you come in on how do you develop that trust. So, what makes a charity trustworthy? There's a few various options that come to mind. One, to these respondents in this survey, they were saying that the accomplishments shared by the organization are helpful in them understanding whether or not that charity is trustworthy. The other is about third-party evaluations. There's a lot of different sites online that you can check about the accuracy, the trust, how you're distributing your funds, all of that. So having a ranking and being reputable is important. Another one is that financial ratio. The fourth being name recognition. Obviously, for you all as schools, there is already this acknowledgement of they've attended your school or they know you well. So I'd say that name recognition is less important. But the last is passion and sincerity of your appeal. So the top two, especially around building this trust that are relevant to you all as schools, is one, sharing the accomplishments of your organization, and two is the passion and sincerity. So that is your outreach personalized? Is there intention? Is there relevance? And then what are you sharing that's important to the donor? That would be around your school's accomplishments. So all of these are saying, yes, we need trust. What does trust look like to me as a donor? These are the top five about how I'm going to evaluate you and your trustworthiness as a school as to whether or not I should give back. As you're thinking about sharing those accomplishments, you already have numerous anecdotal and factual items to be able to share. Throughout your school year, you have multiple things to be able to reference. For example, your graduation rates. What is that college pipeline? Where are some universities that you're sending your students to? Those success stories, be it individual or at large, the full class year, those are accomplishments that are easy to be able to share out in your appeals. Think about also current events. What are some initiatives that are happening academically, arts, sports-wise? All of this you can either do broad sweeping, but you have the data to also personalize your touch points where you can make relevant appeals based on what they were a part of at your school already. So if you know that an alum was a part of a certain sports team and this sports accomplishment might actually trigger them in giving more or giving it all, what you want to start thinking about is what is that data you have and how can you share these accomplishments so that it feels more relevant to the donor and alum that you're reaching out to. In general, accomplishments can very easily be focused on attendance, growth, diversity, you name it. Maybe it's also thinking about faculty and awards and highlights that they are a part of. Is someone on a really cool sabbatical that they're going to be able to bring that information back into the classroom? What speaker series do you have? Are there alumni that you want to spotlight? There are also just some school-wide acknowledgments, like your school's ranking in the area, that are going to be able to prove to the potential donor that not only are you delivering right now, but you want to be delivering in the future. One thing that I have not listed out in this bullet list is, do you have future new buildings? Are you upgrading like different curriculum? What is it in your future vision as well that will be an accomplishment in its own right? Now, passion and sincerity are also important, as we saw with that survey. With that comes the necessity of personalized outreach and that intentionality. What you have to consider this year, more so than any other year, is the impact of AI. So, the impact of AI, there are pros and cons. I'll be honest, me and the team, we looked through various surveys. We were trying to figure out what like actual statistics around the impact of AI in foundations and nonprofits. I wouldn't say that there is like a solid trend in the education space or otherwise around this. What we have been able to find as a trend is AI can really help with creative language and personalization ideas, but there are people that are very concerned around data privacy and the context of how you're exposing their data to AI. What you have to be aware of using AI is anything you submit into whatever AI you're using, you lose complete control of that data. You no longer own that information. So if you're putting in personal information to say, hey, write me this letter to so and so, they have XYZ credentials, and they generate a really great marketing email for you, that AI now owns the information of that person's name and more about them that you provided to them. Unless you have a paid subscription with specific AI partnerships that explicitly say that they know they are not allowed to use their data outside of a partnership with you. So be very aware about this exposure, and we're going to go into the data later, but every single generation is very concerned about AI and privacy around their data. So use it for, creative language, trying to help you come up with more targeted, personalized appeals. Like that sincerity and passion can actually be generated by AI, but you really have to focus on, are you putting too much information in? Because too much information is actually exposing your database. So when told, this is a statistic here, when told a charity used AI to find them, only 21% had a positive reaction in this survey. Meanwhile, 44% said they are less likely to give to this charity because AI was used to find them. So, as we said, AI, pros and cons. Positives can help with marketing, can help with language and creativity. Negatives is really around this data focus. Why are you targeting me? You found me through AI, you're scraping my data, or you're using my data and putting it into a system and you're exposing my data elsewhere. So historical actions also are going to be impacting current giving. So they're saying around trust that 62% of donors report monitoring and evaluating the impact of their charitable giving before they give next. So there's a variety of donors that you're trying to target. You're trying to target first-time donors. You're trying to target those base of donors that might not have given in the last few years. And then you've got your loyal donors who could either pop up to that major donor list or you want to keep them where they are. This is specifically focusing on those that have given in the past. They are going to be tracking those successes. How are you using their money to be able to dictate whether or not they give the same, less, more, or not at all to you in future years? So not only do you want to be thinking about getting the dollars in the door today, but what is the story around what's happened with the dollars in the past, and what can they be doing, and what will you be using it in the future, as well as having that pipeline of donor thanks and donor retention throughout the year between the campaigns that you're running. Being able to reach out to donors saying, your dollars delivered on this without it actually being a financial ask is a really positive experience from someone being recognized for giving, seeing the success of your school, and then a few months later being asked for additional dollars. So think about the full cycle year round. But from a trust building perspective, people are tracking what you've done with their gifts in the past, and this is how you're going to be able to retain them down the line. What I mentioned before around data privacy. Data privacy is a huge concern and it is across all different age groups. Gen Z, it doesn't matter, like they are actually focused, the younger they are also focused on, is this charity sharing my data somewhere? What about hacking? There's so many data breaches now. We've all experienced it with some portals that, or systems rather, that a lot of schools have used in the last few years. What you really have to think about is how are you exposing someone's data to do this outreach? Are you, again, working with AI on this? Or what systems do you have in place around doing any donation campaign? Are you sending spreadsheets of people's data unsecured to volunteers so that they can reach out to people? What systems do you have in place to try and make sure that the data that has been shared with others to help with these campaigns are not being used for anything else except for this specific donation campaign? Think about that data sharing being optional. So they want to make sure that they are able to easily opt out of data sharing. This is a combination of what are your reports like? Are you publishing everyone's name that's donated? Do they publicly want their name to be shown that way? How are you actually retaining their information in a secure portal? Regardless, data privacy, it's going to continue to be more and more important every year, just as the internet is so interconnected. So really focus on if you can build up actual language around your approach around data privacy, it's going to be really helpful for your donors to see that you are addressing something that's really important to them. Again, I'm sorry about the text heavy side of stuff. I just wanted to show some other statistics around donations. They are really concerned about the concept of hacking, what would prevent someone from giving again. Again, it's you've exposed my data, my credit card information to others. That reassurance is really around we have data security measures, we have privacy policies, like there is third-party verification. So all of this is to say, if you are working with another company to help you develop those mailers with people's personal names and physical addresses, what is that? What are your terms and conditions with this other partner who's going to be printing your data for you? Are you making sure that they have in their contracts, we do not use this data for anything else? Are you sending through secure portals? Now, some of this your donor may never know about, but having these protocols in place and actually having the ability to speak to them and be prepared to talk to them is going to help you build that trust with any donor that has that question. Or if they hear about a breach elsewhere, you can say, oh, wait, we have these protocols in place already. So, as I mentioned, have those FAQs and systems prepped. What are you doing as a team to make sure that data privacy is addressed? Are you only accessing people's information on secure Wi-Fi's within your like work laptops? How are you actually using AI with that information? If you have those questions prepared and answered already before your donation campaigns, it means that you're not scrambling on how to answer a question. It also means that you're not going to be surprised. If we go back statistically, as we're seeing that people have real opinions around AI, have real opinions around trust, having some of these questions pre-answered before your giving days are going to be really helpful for you just to feel prepared. And those questions are going to be able to be in your back pocket, and rather those answers are going to be in your back pocket moving forward throughout the year. This also is the case for volunteers. If you have volunteers helping you fundraise, they're going to be asked these questions. You need to be able to give them the resources to respond correctly or pass along and escalate to you. Write those into your procedures because these are newer, relevant questions that schools are facing, as well as other nonprofits. Data privacy, what does AI impact? And those AI questions might go beyond how are you using AI to contact me? But what is the school doing with AI? AI, hot button topic, have those answers already prepped to be able to respond to. Now, the one thing I do always caution, because we've had experience with schools, some of our clients have had problems with this before. Anything you share with a volunteer, regardless of whether you've given them the consent to use, it is out of your hands. It could be published, it could be made public. You cannot have anything in written form delivered to a volunteer that you can't accept to be published at a broader scale. It's unfortunate. Sometimes volunteers don't understand. Sometimes they do, and it's unintentional. But regardless, that means that if you are sending and partnering with volunteers to help you on these donation campaigns, Day of Giving, you're having them reach out to their classmates. Are you sending them a spreadsheet over email to reach out to them, or are you using a specific volunteer portal to help out? If that contactable data is sent to a volunteer, it means that they have names, phone numbers, emails, you name it. What do they have the ability to use this information outside of this donation campaign? If you have systems, so for Wavelength, our volunteers can see the list of people they should contact, but they can't export the list and they have to do everything through the system. So you as admin see the outreach, see all the communication. If you don't have those systems in place, make sure you have clear data privacy and expectations set with your volunteers of once this is done, you need to be deleting this information. You can't retain or use these lists for anything else. Unfortunately, we did have a school have an issue of sending out a contact list, and it was later used as they used it for some sort of, they had a negative campaign against the school because they didn't like what happened at an event, and they reached out as a distribution list on their own separately. So you really want to be wary of what are your systems, what are your FAQs, what are your volunteers have access to, because it goes back to that trust. As soon as I, as an alum, hear you exposed my data or you gave someone an email and I was contacted out of turn, I'm unhappy. And as soon as you lose that trust, it's really challenging to rebuild. It's a lot easier to lose trust than gain it. So, what information are you giving to your volunteers? Do they need to know like who has and hasn't donated and frequency? They probably don't need to see like total dollar values, but maybe dollar ranges. What list of contact information? How are you controlling that access? Also, like, what is that report back? How are you receiving information of what volunteers have done, who's reached out? Now, you could replace the term volunteer with any other employee or staff member assisting you on these donation campaigns. You could be having fellow staff who regularly don't work in your office assisting you on making calls. You want to have clear systems for those notes to be captured because that feedback and those notes are going to help with building that rapport down the line. So let's say, hey, I talked with so and so, they're really stressed right now, but get through March and their kids are going to be in college and they're ready to have a conversation. Being able to have those anecdotal notes where you can then follow up with a way more personalized contact point to say, hey, how's that senior year going for your kid? That's going to be a lot more useful to be able to show, I know you as an individual. I'm not just seeing you as a number. So think through really what all of your systems are like. So that's building trust. What you also want to think through is engagement. Engagement, and this is again that longer tail of engagement is too late for a campaign that's happening next week for you. But engagement year round is really where you want to be considering what are these touch points that you're building relationships and therefore trust with this alumni base where they can become donors in the future. So these donors and rather potential donors could look a few different ways. Volunteers, it's showing that volunteering in general is increasing, but on top of that, they give 3 times larger gifts than their counterparts. So if you are trying to think through a volunteer program, maybe an alumni association, you name it, know that not only is that, yes, a lot of hard work for you to maintain, but they themselves are likely to give more, and they probably have a lot more personal touch points that they can make with fellow alumni to donate themselves as well. So volunteering, huge engagement opportunity. The key around volunteering, we've had other calls about this. You want very clear, defined roles. You don't want someone just to say, oh, I'm a volunteer, I can do anything. Set expectations. You don't want a poor experience for them. So if you say, yes, you're a volunteer, and then they never hear from you, that's problematic. But if you said, yes, you're a volunteer, you're going to be a class officer in charge of reunions, you're going to reach out leading up to reunions. That at least gives them a time frame of when they'd be helping out and what their roles and responsibilities are. So volunteers, very broad topic. You might have volunteers who are mentoring from a career side. You might have, those who are helping with reunions, event planning. All of those volunteers, there's an interest for more engagement year over year that we've seen in the past few years, and some of them are going to be giving more. So think of that as an engagement opportunity year round. It does take effort for you to manage them. Don't overdo it that year one, have a few volunteers, but these are really ones that you're cultivating this relationship, and they're going to be able to provide feedback for you as well on how to become more relevant to your donor base. So thinking about engaging, a lot of this has to do with donor values. The importance of giving, a lot of people are saying, I donate to those that have similar values and beliefs to myself. 80% of those are going to be giving locally. The relationship with the school, you all already have the important aspect of we have a relationship with you, or we had a relationship with you. So, what you're trying to do is show that your values and beliefs still align with the vision. I literally spoke with someone the other day who works in a dev office at a school, but who does not give back to one of their schools because of how much they've changed from the values of when they attended. So, what you really want to think about here is the full circle of what values and beliefs can we share to show as accomplishments that are going to bring these donors to feel more engaged with you all as an institution and have them give over time. So when you're thinking about what that engagement looks like and donor values, what motivates someone to care? That answer is going to be different by demographic. You have the opportunity to do data segmentation within likely the systems you already have. What's their age? What's their family profile? What careers are they a part of? What did they participate at your school? That personalization is going to allow you to target your messaging. Again, back to AI. If you're feeling drained, I know it's been a really long year already for some people. AI can help. It can create new ideas for you. You can say, "Hey, I'm doing a donation campaign. I'm trying to post to social media on this, or I'm trying to write a campaign letter to this type of demographic." That's okay. That's not the data privacy you have to worry about. The data privacy is write me a letter to Janet Smith, who lives here and has XYZ data points, and make it overly personalized, where all of a sudden you've given AI too much information, whatever company you're using, ChatGPT, Gemini, what have you. This is where A/B testing is also valuable. You are able to see what is of donors' core values, what is the most compelling. This is where you are testing over time. It does take additional resources. It does take a little bit more effort, but you might be able to move that needle a little bit. What is moving people to donate? Is it, this academic initiative, this new building? Is it, this alumni spotlight story? Is it this parent communication? As you are testing your marketing language, you are able to then in the future update your language down the line as you test out which values your school is offering and what values are compelling to the donor itself. So, reminder, when we're talking about establishing trust, it has to do with that passion and sincerity of your appeal. That really revolves around donors' values. You are sharing with them that you have very similar values as a school entity as themselves, or you're trying to have that compassion with them to say, you experience this here. Look at what a successful life you're living. Give back to so future students and current students can have a similar experience so that they are just as successful as you all. So when you're thinking about potential trust challenges, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. The AI side, you really want to make sure, yes, use it with that human contact as well as human adoption. So adaptation, make those changes to the language, make those changes to really make sure it's personalized. Make sure that you aren't oversharing data or it's used incorrectly. I referenced the volunteer that used the data as a distribution list. You really want to make sure you're sharing it correctly. One example, we've talked about this on previous calls. GoFundMe lost complete trust on a lot of nonprofits because they just happened to create nonprofit pages without letting nonprofits know, branding them, letting donors donate, and the nonprofits aren't aware that they're fundraising campaigns on their behalf. That really devalues, in my mind, the trust of GoFundMe's brand and has people concerned about what else are you using my data for. GoFundMe literally culled all 1.4 million data points and data pages by using data scraping behavior across the web. So that's really where you do not want to have that fiasco for your school. You're using the data correctly and you're not sharing it out widely. Um, when it comes to donation requests too, you have to understand that if you are not managing the relationship and you are once a year just contacting people and you haven't communicated with them in the past, if you look at the statistics, a lot of alumni are saying, you're only contacting me for money. I haven't heard from you year round. You're now asking me for money. So what? What you really want to think about is that managed relationship. I've talked with a different school of ours that we're about to launch with them. They have never had a portal like an alumni portal before, and they realize, you know what? Right now, we're going to launch without donation showing, without doing a personal ask right now. We're trying to show a value add and rebuild that relationship that we have put off for some time and then bring them back to be able to ask for donations throughout the rest of the year and really hit hard for next year's campaign. The other thing is incorrect data and information. If you have old data, if you have bad data for an individual, you could actually do some really detrimental relationship management. So we actually had a school situation where one student said, "Hey, my name has changed." And that was not reflected in the ultimate CRM database. And so they were getting sent emails and were asked to donate using their former name. And that is a really negative experience for them. And they already had taken the step of trying to update the school. So you want to make sure that you're using the most up-to-date data, especially if someone has informed you of this information in the past. Some positive trust building that we've seen from some of our clients is that really personalized outreach. You know about them, and this could be not just one-on-one, it could be larger groups as well of you had a really engaged class, you want to target them with some fun messages or celebrate the nostalgia of like your year did super well successfully on X. That personalized outreach, we find open rates to be higher, we find click-through rates to be higher. This is again goes back to A/B testing. You can figure out when we say personalized, it's, we acknowledge your age, we acknowledge your location, we acknowledge what you are part of at our school. You can pick one of those to say, hey, people are really loving the fact that we know what clubs they were a part of at our school, or they're really celebrating that we know they no longer live in state and, we'll invite them back for a holiday experience and acknowledge that they're off doing something really cool geographically elsewhere. Another positive thing that we've seen with clients is that clear and concise communication on how money will be used. Be very upfront, be able to share, and most schools have the ability for you to select where what your preference is. Do you want it to be financial aid? Is it open use? What have you? But being able to be very clear and set expectations from the start is going to be really important. And then the last is that donor retention and appreciation. It's not just those singular days of giving that you're requesting, but thinking year round, how you're keeping people engaged, thinking how are you showing your appreciation very shortly after the donation went through, be it beyond that thank you page. Are you having additional communications? Are you celebrating those wins? What you really want to think through is that full cycle of an alum, the touch points throughout the year. When is it donation related? What value add and showing of those success stories that are you providing to them so that they give down the line? I don't have this statistic right here, but in our sign up page for this Zoom had information around first time donors. Q1 2025 had first time, or sorry, fewer small time donors. So those are donors that give $1 to $100. There was a dip by 11% last in Q1 2025 compared to Q1 2024. There were fewer small time donors giving. So what you really want to think about is maintaining those relationships and keeping people happy, as well as thinking through what is that passion and what is that value that you can align with your donor and the school together. So I'm going to go back to one of the very first screens of what do people view as trustworthy for a charity and what's important to donors. It's accomplishments from your organization and the sincerity of your appeal. So really focus on those two in the short term and then think through those long-term engagement points so that donation happens over time. High level review that I just gave you, lots of data and lots of text on these slides. We're going to share out the presentation and this video to everyone who signed up. Thank you so much for your time.